I have to admit, I always thought Tulsi Gabbard was extra smart. Especially, I saw her on Joe Rogan one time and listen to what she said.
I do know that when you look at, guys like Jimmy Dore, for example.
Yes.
Jimmy Dore talks about a lot of things that you'll never hear if you flick on the TV, on the cable news channels, and has very interesting conversations. And again, bringing facts and different things to life that people don't otherwise feel like they have access to.
I don't know. I just always thought she was really smart, Ron.
And Jimmy, I don't want to, put this down or anything, but in reality, she has decided to run for president, and she knows that you control elections.
Oh.
So I don't want to make you feel bad, but
you know what, Ron? A lot of people have blamed me for the last election, and
She's preemptively winning you over.
She knows that I am the kingmaker. Me and Jill Stein. We are the kingmakers in American politics. So she knows what side, where her bread is buttered.
Yep.
So anyway, she went on CNN and she said this.
Are you going to run for president of the United States and do something about it? Do you think she should? Do you think she should? Are you going to run?
I have decided to run and will be making a formal announcement within the next week.
Yay!
Whoa.
Yay! Everybody's happy. And our good friend Gordon says the DNC just choked on their diamond-encrusted 5-star donor-bought breakfast. Let's remember who Tulsi Gabbard is. Tulsi Gabbard is the one who voluntarily stepped down from her position at the DNC. I think she was vice chair. She voluntarily stepped down. Why? Because she didn't like the way Bernie was being treated. That's why. She actually stuck her neck out. She's, I think, 3 Democrats in the whole country who stood up for Bernie Sanders, right? Keith Ellison was one of them. He actually broke with his party, and she did it, and people forget that. I actually had somebody say to me yesterday, Ron, a Bernie Sanders fan like me, said, I think she's getting in the race as controlled opposition to split the progressive vote. I'm like, boy, that's quite a plan Tulsi launched when she decided to step down from the DNC so she could endorse Bernie Sanders, because in 4 years later, she was going to then split the... Okay, wow, that's... I'm up for a good theory, but that's a little out there. It doesn't make any sense, especially since Elizabeth Warren is already in the race, and that's supposed to split the progressive vote. So now the progressive vote will be split 3 ways: Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Tulsi Gabbard. I lean towards Tulsi Gabbard because her foreign policy is fantastic, or well, it's better than Bernie's. Put it that way, right? And
well, I'm still hoping for a joint ticket. I'm not giving
I would love
some hope for that. I'm hoping it's Tulsi and Bernie VP.
If Bernie would have announced that Tulsi was his vice president, I think when he was running, it would have helped him.
I think so too. And they did have that meeting shortly before she announced. So,
that her
Bernie and yeah.
Oh, really? I thought
they met. They met up.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So we don't know much more than that. But
I know Bernie and Elizabeth Warren had a meetup. But I didn't know that they had a meetup. That's fantastic. So remember, that's who she is. Plus, she's the only one, only a few people in the whole country that are speaking out against our interventionist wars. And it's sad to see. And she speaks up for Palestinians. And she speaks up against our intervention in Syria, and she caught hell for it. And Max Blumenthal kind of gets it right. He says the neocon left liberal interventionist freak out. So the neocon left and right freak out over the only presidential candidate who has forcefully defied the bipartisan foreign policy consensus. So we have a bipartisan foreign policy consensus of endless war, perpetual war, and intervention everywhere. And it's always at the behest of Saudi Arabia or Israel. And so she goes against that in a forceful way. And so the interventionists on the left and the right are freaking out over her. He says it will be somewhat enjoyable to watch it build to a petulant frenzy this year. And he says that she's forcefully defied the bipartisan foreign policy consensus, and this is just the beginning. So let's remember also, this is from RT, Gabbard certainly poses a thorny problem for the neocon neoliberal axis. as she checks all the identity politics boxes. The first Hindu member of Congress, a woman. She's a veteran. And she has undeniable populist appeal, given her anti-establishment record. While Gabbard is a Democrat, she was emphatically not a Clinton supporter. Not a Clinton supporter. So that's where a lot of hate is coming from for her, too, is from there. She resigned as vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. That's right. I was right. Vice chair in February 2016. So she could endorse Bernie Sanders in the primary. And now some people are saying that somehow she's doing this so she could screw. It's disrespectful to Bernie. Like, what do you but here's some of the smears, Ron. Here they are. Putin Puppet versus Assad shill. Debs and Republicans in a panic over Gabbard challenging Trump in 2020. She'd be a great challenger for Trump. She's a veteran. She's a woman of now she's a woman of color. Her father, well, we're going to get to that part. And I like that she stands up against foreign wars, foreign interventions, and that she had the guts to go to Syria to see what was actually happening and not rely on the corporate news that just is a mouthpiece to the Pentagon.
Well, and she's someone that I think a lot of the country would feel comfortable having her with her, quote, thumb on the button, as they put it, because she is a veteran. She has that experience. She also does want to improve foreign relations and not be in endless wars. So, I think it's the type of leader that a country could get behind.
I agree. But people, they give it to her over that. Putin, vote for, oh my God. She's a veteran, and they red bait her and call her a traitor at the same time. And a veteran, I mean, it's just that's such gross stuff, isn't it? Oh my, isn't that gross to do that? Like, do you have a problem with her policies or anything? Let's talk about it. You want to just smear? Did they just smear her?
There have been a lot of smears on her that have been either largely unfounded or something. And I don't want to jump ahead because I know you're going to cover more stuff in this, but stuff that she has, distanced herself from many years ago.
Oh yeah,
like her past.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Mm-hmm. For instance, here, ever since her 2017 visit, we'll start with the Assad stuff. So ever since her 2017 visit to Syria, Gabbard has been condemned for daring to seek firsthand accounts rather than blindly trusting the mainstream media's narrative. So on Friday, the pundits were off again to the races with fresh accusations of Assad sympathizing. Assad apologist seems to be the Tulsi equivalent of Putin Puppet, which is what we were called when we were at the Oslo Freedom Forum by Gary Kasparov. We were called Putin Puppets, because we were asking about the human rights violations of the United States.
And you were Putin's buddy, which I think is like...
Putin buddy. That's what he called me.
I think that's a promotion.
Yeah.
Like you oversee some of the puppets.
Yeah.
I think that's what that gig entails.
I'm his buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Judging from the early tweets, though, she was accused of being one of those too. So she was accused of being a Putin puppet and an Assad apologist. And so just so you guys remember what's really going on in Syria, and so Tulsi Gabbard went to war. She had friends get killed in illegal wars. She had friends get killed in Iraq for no reason. So she comes back, and now she has, a sober view of war. She knows what it's really like. And she's like, well, I can't be voting for this war in Syria. I have to go see what's actually going on. She goes there. People start calling her an Assad apologist and a Putin puppet. And let's remember what's really happening in Syria. People don't know what's happening in Syria. Here's what's really happening in Syria and why Tulsi was 100% right. Here we go.
Escalate. It's true, but I think we have to step back and not put this in partisan terms. This is a U.S. mistake that started 7 years ago. And I remember the day on your show when President Obama said, Assad must go. And I looked at you and Joe and I said, how's he going to do that? Where's the policy for that? Right. And we know they sent in the CIA to overthrow Assad. The CIA and Saudi Arabia together in covert operations tried to overthrow Assad.
The CIA and Saudi Arabia tried to overthrow Assad. And how did they do that?
Was a disaster. Eventually, it brought in both ISIS as a splinter group to the jihadists that went in. It also brought in Russia. So we have been digging deeper.
So they funded, trained ISIS, just like we did this to Al-Qaeda. We did that in Syria. That's with CIA money, baby. CIA admits it. It's called the Timber Sycamore. It's not a secret. It's just not well known.
And deeper. What we should do now is get out and not continue to throw missiles, not have a confrontation with Russia. 7 years has been a disaster under Obama, continuing under Trump. This is what I would call the permanent state. This is the CIA, this is Pentagon, wanting to keep Iran and Russia out of Syria, but no way to do that. And so we have made a proxy war in Syria. It's killed 500,000 people, displaced 10 million, and I'll say predictably so, because I predicted it 7 years ago that there was no way to do this and that it would make a complete chaos. So what I would plead to President Trump is get out. Like his instinct told him, by the way. That was his instinct. But then all the establishment, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Pentagon, everybody said, no, that's irresponsible. But his instinct is right. Get out. We've done enough damage, 7 years. And now we really risk a confrontation with Russia that is extraordinarily dangerous, reckless.
Admiral Stavridis.
So now you know what's happening? And by the way, nobody contradicted him on that whole panel. Those people who have been actively and passively pushing Russiagate, none of them pushed back against him or said he was wrong.
I was going to say, too bad he doesn't have a mic to drop.
Right?
That would have been a perfect moment for him.
Yeah.
Have they had him on since?
So I don't know if they've had him on since, but I think that was his one and only. So now you know what's happening. So that's what's actually happening. That's what never gets reported, and everyone's still pretending. So that's why she went there. So, okay, so can we put that to bed now? Again, the propaganda is for war because the military-industrial complex owns the corporations that give you your news. So only 6 corporations give you your news, and they're all pro-war all the time. Isn't that weird? And the people who are against the war get fired, like Phil Donahue. Isn't that funny? Phil Donahue, Jesse Ventura get fired. Everybody else gets promoted. So there you go. So
let's take another look at that smear and how it began in the first place. I have a problem with her. Why? Well, we were involved in this conflict internationally, and she wanted to see what was going on for herself. You're mad about that?
And her conclusions went against the establishment narrative.
Yeah, I don't like it.
So I don't like it. Well, she's an Assad apologist. Who is Assad? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who that is or what he's about. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, that's for sure. But she's an apologist for him, I bet you. So here she is also, she's RT. Tulsi Gabbard is going to run for president supported by the Russian government's media arm. You know why they say she's supported by the Russian government's media? Because she's in the news, and RT is a news channel, and they cover her. They covered her. Tulsi Gabbard calls on U.S. government to stop supporting terrorists after meeting Syria civilians in Assad. We were. That was just got explained to you by Jeffrey Sachs at MSNBC. We were supporting CIA went in. We were supporting terrorists, ISIS.
See, what happened was other media outlets around the world covered that, just not ours.
Yeah, that's right.
What happened.
So RT covers it, and then look, she's being propped up by Russians.
Mm-hmm. See, in other countries, their media system isn't based on a for-profit corporation model, so they actually cover conflict in a much more responsible way. They still have their problems, but compared to us, not near as bad.
The RNC also released a cheat sheet of talking points following the news of Gabbard's pending announcement, though some took that as a sign of weakness. Well, here's the thing they released. They call her Assad's mouthpiece in Washington. And there's the cheat sheet. That's what they released. And it's interesting. Why is that interesting that the RNC released that on Tulsi Gabbard and called her all those names? Why is that interesting? Because the fact that the GOP took the time to tweet out an infographic about her when they've only ever mentioned Kamala Harris on their Twitter feed one time ever, as far as I can tell, says a lot about the potential of her. So they're afraid of her. They're not as afraid of Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris doesn't inspire anybody because she does the bidding of the corporations. That's why Steve Mnuchin's our secretary treasurer, because she didn't prosecute him when she was the attorney general of California, and he was a criminal banker. So that sells me a lot. They're afraid of her. They're not afraid of Kamala Harris. Isn't that what that tells you, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, in so many ways, is the ideal person to run against Trump, because Trump ran on this whole, like, I'm an anti-establishment guy, and it was all a lie.
Right.
But, people bought into that. In many ways, she is, like, the left equivalent of that. She does things outside of the box. She does things on her own terms. She has all this crossover appeal that we mentioned. She's a veteran and so forth. She's young. So I think, like, that's, like, an ideal, like, left populist response to what's trending in the White House now on the other side. So, I think, just looking at it strictly, objectively, I think she has a good shot at beating him. I think Kamala Harris would lose.
Yeah, I think so, too. And the corporatists are really out. The pro-Israeli people are out for her. The corporatists are out for her. The GOP is out for her. I mean, she's really ruffles a lot of feathers. Not like people are ignoring her. Believe me. She scares a lot of people, and she ruffles a lot of feathers, and people have to smear her. And there's room to criticize everybody, and you can genuinely and honestly criticize Tulsi Gabbard, but that's not the criticism she's getting. She's getting all this stuff. Look at this. This is from the Palmer Report. My support for every other Democratic 2020 candidate still stands. But Tulsi Gabbard, hell no. She should have been banned from the party a long time ago. Effing monster. She calls an effing monster. She's a monster. She's a monster. What do you call Ted Cruz? What is Louis Gohmert? She's a monster. The person who stands up against war is the monster. The person who's against war is a monster. She'll use her campaign to try to destroy the Democratic Party during the primary. I won't allow it. That's what people said about Bernie Sanders. What are you talking about? Oh, I bet he doesn't support Bernie either because he's not a Democrat. Right? So
it says in the first, she's not a real Democrat.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
She tried to sabotage the DNC from within in 2016. Yeah, whenever you want to sabotage something from within, usually you leave it and distance yourself from it. That's usually the first thing
and you get everybody
you do.
in the organization to reject you and hate you.
I'm inside of the machine. I'm going to do something. I better go.
Let me leave and out myself. Let me out myself as being an enemy. He says this guy Jacob Wool says everybody in the pro-Israeli lobby, myself included, is already talking about how to make sure the Tulsi Gabbard campaign is over before it even gets off the ground. They're scared of her. If you're going to bet on a Democratic candidate, look elsewhere. They're scared of her. So these are all and other people didn't even bother with issues or facts, preferring guilt by association and personal insults. For instance, here's one. Someone named Ollie Junkfast, her mom was famous, so now she gets to have a $5 million apartment in Manhattan overlooking Central Park, which I'm jealous of. And so she's also a writer, and she says so if you know that David Duke tweeted out support of Tulsi Gabbard, and I think it had to do with the Assad thing, right? So she's an anti-interventionist there also. But anyway, he tweeted out support of her. Doesn't really matter why. He says Tulsi Gabbard for Secretary of State, an example of a need for political realignment, right? Okay. That's David Duke, and he's the KKK guy, right? And so this woman retweets that, but not the tweet, just a screenshot. And she tweets it out and says, and this is why Tulsi Gabbard should not be your 2020 pick. So that's weird. So you can't support Tulsi Gabbard because some guy who she has no control over endorsed her. Because someone who's repulsive likes her, which she doesn't have any control over. So now what she's saying, what Molly Junkfast is saying, we should let David Duke disqualify anybody he feels like. So now if he endorses Elizabeth Warren, are you going to say the same thing? So he gets to pick? So David Duke gets to decide who we're supposed to be not like? All he has to do is say something nice about them? Because guess what? Trump did that to Nancy Pelosi. So now you don't like Nancy Pelosi? Of course you do. So you have, again, that's an inconsistent standard, which reveals you, not to have, well, to be inconsistent is the nicest thing I could say. The actual thing is that you don't have much integrity because you don't have a consistent standard. You have one standard for people you like and one for people you don't like. And so you argue dishonestly, and that's called a smear. And that's why that doesn't make any sense. She was endorsed by Trump. Nobody took that seriously, even though I bet you 10-1 he actually meant it. So that's why that's what doesn't mean anything. And I said, imagine the confusion in the tortured head of Ollie Junkfast. After voting for a woman who called black children super predators, she then smears a veteran and the first Hindu woman elected to Congress with the cheapest of cheap shots. And here's the thing. She tweeted out a screenshot. She tweeted out a screenshot of that because if she would have actually tweeted out the tweet that David Duke made and saying nice things about Tulsi Gabbard, you would have seen her response. That's why she didn't tweet that out. She tweeted out a screenshot. Again, revealing the poor character of Ollie Junkfast once again. That's called dealing from the bottom of the deck. That's what that is. Eesh, you have to do that to smear somebody? She's so horrible you have to do underhanded smear tactics that reveal you to have poor character? Really? You're revealing yourself. You're not revealing her.
She's dealing from the bottom of the deck and screenshotting the card she wants.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because here's what she said back to David Duke. You don't know I'm Polynesian and Caucasian? My dad couldn't use whites-only water fountains. No, thank you. Your white nationalism is pure evil. But Ollie Junkfast didn't want you to see that. Do you see how people have to attack her? If she's that bad, why do you have to be such? Why do you have to reveal yourself to have no character? Why do you have to attack her in such an underhanded way? If she's so bad, you shouldn't have to do that in such an underhanded way, but you did. Why? Because you don't have integrity and she does. That's why. You have to come at her unfairly and smear her. So that's okay. And then she changes the subject. She goes, imagine wanting to die on the Tulsi did nothing wrong hill. Nobody said that. Nobody said she didn't do anything wrong. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you trying to paint her as a racist is at best disingenuous and at worst reveals you to have no character or integrity. Because we just showed how you debate or try to present an argument. It's really underhanded. And I said, where did you learn to smear women of color in the most underhanded way like that? Did you pick that up from Hillary or Trump? FYI, your parents did a shit job raising you. It's not actually her parents' fault. It's her fault. She's grown. She's 40 or she's over 40 or something. She's totally grown up.
You should have put a follow-up tweet.
I should have.
Actually, not your parents' fault. Changed my mind.
Changed my mind. Her picture makes her look much younger. But she's certainly snowflakey. But so there it is. Oh, by the way, there's one more. She's kind of famous actress, this Lisa Anwell. Do you know who she is? She's been in a lot of movies. And she goes, oh, for F's sake, told these morons they like her because she's pretty. That's what she said about Tulsi Gabbard. No, I don't know if she copied that from a Trump tweet. Because that sounds like something a chauvinist would say. That's how, because what chauvinists and misogynists do is they reduce women down to their physicality and sex appeal. And that's what she's doing, because I don't know if you know, Tulsi Gabbard's actually an accomplished. She's actually was a veteran. And she's actually a congressperson. And she is right, though. We only like her because she's pretty, which is why we also like Sarah Palin.
Yep.
I was crazy about her. I don't care about her politics. She's cute. She's good looking. I'm just dumb. So this is something that if a guy said that, he would probably, and he had a TV show, he would probably get kicked off his TV show. But a woman could say the most disgusting thing underhand. That's not good. I don't think that's not good. I mean, again, I'm not a woman, but I'm pretty sure if a guy said that, he'd get in a lot of trouble. But somehow it's cool. Again, if you politically think you're on the right side, it allows you to be just as ugly as Trump and shallow. That's pretty shallow and chauvinistic, even though she's a woman doing that, right?
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, because I've seen, she's not the only one saying stuff like that. I've seen that, like just kind of around.
Right.
Oh, they just like Tulsi because she's pretty and stuff like that. You're also like kind of subtly hinting that Kamala Harris is unattractive, and she's a good-looking woman too. Like,
Right.
why? Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe people are
Kamala
more
Harris
concerned
is
about
very attractive.
policies.
Kamala Harris is very attractive. But what? Yeah, nobody. We're not on board with her, are we, Ron?
I'm not a fan of hers. No.
So anyway, that's just like that actually makes her look bad. That doesn't do like like what Molly Junkfast did and what she did. That makes them look bad. It reveals who they are. It doesn't say anything about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then so the other thing is she was against gay marriage for vocally.
Yes,
right.
She was.
So that's her Achilles heel. And Glenn Greenwald tweets this out, but she's not anymore, by the way. And let's remember that everybody's hero, the Black Santa Claus, Barack Obama, was against gay marriage until when? About 5 minutes ago? When did he come around?
It's been a few hours.
When did he finally come around to that? Right, because he ran on against. He wasn't for gay marriage when he ran. That's for sure, right? Okay, so Glenn Greenwald says, do past anti-gay statements and positions permanently besmirch a person's character, or does evolving and changing and repudiating those past positions absolve them of their sins? It'd be good if we had a consistent standard on this question. Yeah, I mean, Joyanne Reed was allowed to have some time travelers go back.
Yeah, those time travelers hacking the blogs.
So here's what I'll tell. So here's the info on how she was against gay marriage, and now, like the rest of the country. Hey, by the way, the majority, like 88% of the country, was against gay marriage when I was getting out of college. Right. So this is very recent how this has switched so quickly. So here's how Tulsi Gabbard has responded. To show that she is, again, like the rest of the country, evolved on the gay marriage issue. She has signed the Supreme Court amicus on marriage equality to supporting the repeal of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. That was in 2013. She co-sponsored the Equality Act, which amends the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity among the prohibited categories of discrimination or segregation in places of public accommodation. So she co-sponsored that. That's a big deal. She also co-sponsored the fair housing and credit legislation, and she also advocated to end bullying of LGBT children in schools. She also co-sponsored the Equality for All Resolution and the Respect for Marriage Act, the Healthy Families Act, and the Paycheck Fairness Act. And here's a bigger deal. She has 100% score rating from the Human Rights Campaign. She has 100% score from the Human Rights Campaign. And what is the Human Rights Campaign? Well, I'll tell you what the Human Rights Campaign is. I'll read it to you right now. It says the Human Rights Campaign represents a force of more than 3 million members and supporters nationwide as the largest national lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer civil rights organization. HRC envisions a world where LGBTQ people are ensured of their basic equal rights and can be open, honest, and safe at home, at work, and in the community. And this is so they build themselves as the largest national lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer civil rights organization. And what do? They give her 100% score.
Well, and it's
so apparently those people don't have a problem with her. You know who does have a problem with her? Hillary voters and some people who don't want to vote for her.
Which, by the way, Tulsi actually evolved on gay marriage before Hillary Clinton did. But also,
really,
yeah. But also, and she's also apologized for her past views. You know,
oh, she has.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine who I consider a friend, and Tulsi Gabbard came up and he's like, you know, her homophobic past, and I was just like, wait a second. You were a diehard Republican in high school,
right?
And now you're progressive. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you're allowed to change, but she's not. She was younger. She grew up in a more conservative background that shaped her views. Then she had more life experience. She met more people, and she changed, and she evolved. Why are you allowed and she's not?
She was in a don't ask, don't tell military, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, exactly right. That's a great point, Ron. Why are you allowed to evolve? And that's what Glenn Greenwald's saying. Everybody else is allowed to evolve, but just not Tulsi Gabbard. Why? Because we don't like that she's, shakes up the establishment on both sides. So there you go. So there's my debunking of the smears of Tulsi Gabbard. They also say, so if there, I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about this. But, I showed you the video up front, so I'm biased, because whenever someone says something nice about you, it's hard to forget that they said that. But here you go. And, I'm in the tank for progressives. I make no bones about it. So I'd be super happy if the ticket was Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, or Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders. I'd be super happy. I would not be screaming if it was Elizabeth Warren, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't be happy. She's the compromise candidate for sure, for me. How about you?
Yeah. It's always kind of like one step forward, one step back with her. Like, oh, that's cool what you said to the banks. Oh, the military budget.
Yeah.
Oh, you're for single payer, but we're not sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of.
I'm gonna not endorse Bernie, but I will endorse Hillary.
Yeah.
That was the one. That was the one that got me.
That was a big one.
That was a big one.
That was a big one.
And then Dapple and a lot of stuff that she was just silent on. So again, here we go. Here's I think a perspective you're not going to get many other places. We're announcing our live dates for 2019. We're going to Chicago and Portland, Seattle, New York, all over the country. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our tickets to all our shows. It'll be right underneath there, too. Please become a patron if you like our content and help support the show. You can become a patron for $5 a month, and we give you hours of bonus material. And make sure you're subscribed. They unsubscribe people every day. I'm not kidding. Make sure you're subscribed and click that bell so they give you a notice when we drop a video. It's the only thing we can do to fight back against the bastards. Thanks for your support.